go?
So the other day we did the lesson on monomials. How do you think the lesson went?
I think it went well. They seem to get it. We did a quick check the other day. They had a little bit of trouble, but they recognized their mistakes.
So do you think they were engaged in the lesson?
I think so. I think, you know, they're asking questions. Maybe not all of them all the time, but I think overall they were.
Was there anyone that you noticed that wasn't asking any questions at all?
There's a few students who tend to be quiet in class, but at this point I know them well enough to know to check on them or if they get it or not.
So that would be my next question. How do you get those students who are typically quiet? Like we have the same kids, so how would you say that how do you get them to come out of their shell a little bit? Not in just this lesson, but any lesson at all.
Generally, try calling on them when they don't have their hands up. Try to give them the sort of the courage to say their answer. A lot of times they're not confident, and that's why they don't speak up. And tell them, I'm not worried if it's right or wrong. Just sort of share your answer, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
And give them that sort of wait time, sort of get it together and say something.
Now, how many kids are in that class?
I think 17.
17. And I think there's a mix. It's like there's like 9 girls, or 8 girls, and 8 boys.
Yeah, it's a mix. Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers. It's a mix. Yeah.
How much background knowledge do you think they had on monomials before coming to?
Well, they did exponents in 6th grade. I know that. And the day before, or the 2 days before, we had covered positive and negative exponents.
Mm-hmm.
So even working with those, they see some of those sort of laws of exponents that come up in monomials.
Okay. And then, so I mean, we talked about doing the exponents last year. How much further into this lesson are you going to be working on exponents? A lot? Does it go into how much further? How much is left?
We go into scientific notation. That's about it. I think they just did the monomials is the biggest part, probably simplifying those monomials.
So simplifying monomials.
Right.
And you think they grasp the topic pretty good? Would you think if you gave them a quick check today on it, they would do
I
well?
plan to give them a quick check today, which is after doing it in a couple of days, and I would expect they would do well. I think some of them may make simple mistakes if you point them out. Like they should have added when they should have subtracted. I have to catch those.
Now, what's a quick check? Can you talk about that?
Just the program has like a little self-check, which is just like 5 questions. Even if I make it up, it's usually like 5 questions. Just sort of basic skills to see if they're getting the lesson or not.
So it's basically a formative assessment for you to understand if they're getting it before they go on to the mid-chapter quiz.
So I know if I can move on or not.
Okay.
If they need a little bit more practice, we'll do a little bit more practice before they actually get more of a formal quiz or an assessment.
Okay. How do you think that lesson, the one I was in for, how do you think that went in comparison to other lessons that you've done before? Probably the same?
I think it was typical, yeah. I mean, if they don't get it, they usually ask questions. If they, if they feel confident in it, they'll usually ask for something harder, because that's the accelerated class.
Right.
That's why I threw up that bigger one out there, to sort of, I tell them to slow them down a little bit. It's really to challenge them to see if they can sort of bring all those skills together in one problem.
So you found in your experience they want to be challenged, they want to be pushed.
This particular group wants to be challenged, yeah. Certain students more than others, obviously, but yeah, as an accelerated class, they like the challenge.
And that's vastly different than the other classes you teach?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other class you teach, aside from this, is majority of kids that are on IEPs and...
Right, yeah.
Okay. So
They're at a different pace.
how have you handled the pacing as far as the accelerated math class for the regular math class? Have you found it challenging? Have you found it manageable?
It's a new program, so I'm just following, we've been told to sort of follow the program to evaluate the program at the end of the year to see how well it works, matching our standards.
Okay.
I would think we're going to tweak at least the order that things are done.
What do you mean by the order?
Like in this class, we started with integers and rational numbers. In the other class, they started with ratios and proportions. I don't think why they shouldn't both do the same thing.
Do the same thing at the same time?
The same thing at the same time. In case a student wants to move, they're already at the same place, because the accelerated class only has like 4 or 5 chapters that are different
Okay.
than the regular math class.
Would the regular math class not be able to handle those 4 or 5 chapters? What makes them
Yeah, well, this is one of them. These monomials is one of them.
Okay.
We're good into square roots. They do some more work with geometry and algebra than the other ones.
So this new program, we moved to McGraw-Hill from, was it Pearson and Visions?
That was in 6th grade, and in 7th and 8th grade they had a different book. I think a lot of them made up their curriculum based on several different books and have a particular.
So you looped up from the 6th grade to the 7th grade. How do you think the kids, especially in this accelerated math class, have handled the transition from 6th to 7th grade?
I think they've done well.
Yeah.
I think some familiarity having me before for the majority of them
Mhm.
helps them a lot.
If you had to guess, what was the percentage of kids that have looped up here from last year? That you had last year, you had this year?
It's probably somewhere around half, maybe even a little bit more than half.
Okay. And the transition with the new kids has been seamless as well?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like they never saw me before.
Right, right, right.
So they knew of me at least.
Well, that's the benefit of being
Yeah.
a part of a small school.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
everybody sees each other.
Right.
So far, the first 3 months of the school year, you know, we worked on this problem. Can you tell me, you've kind of touched on it a little bit, can you tell me the challenge you've had with balancing the 2 classes and this accelerated math class, maybe in the program that you've had? So a challenge you've had, and maybe something that you've seen that the program works well for, that you haven't really known in the past.
The program works well for providing those formative assessments,
Right.
whereas before I had to make them up. So it's more targeted to what the skills are, although sometimes I still use my own.
Right.
I think again the pacing is different in this program. They started off with less review than in the 6th grade that we formerly had.
Yeah.
There was a lot less review. They sort of come into 7th grade having the expectation that there's certain skills that they already know.
Okay.
So they can say fraction work. The expectation is they know fractions, and when we start doing fractions, specifically in the accelerated class, they'll have fractions with positive and negative numbers. So it's like we're teaching fractions. It's like you know fractions, now we're adding negative fractions to
So
it.
the new program is assuming that they're coming into the school year with all this information already.
Right. It's assuming they sort of understand 6th grade and are ready for 7th grade.
So it's not necessarily conducive to this, like the students who have gaps from
No.
changing school systems, changing math classes, changing.
No. And that's the difference between the accelerated and regular math class. I think the accelerated group is more are ready for 7th grade,
Right.
whereas the regular math class are sort of partially ready
Mhm.
and not fully ready, and they could use that extra review, but the program that we've been told to use doesn't really allow that.
Okay. And I know a part of this new program at McGraw-Hill, we have the ALEX program that they can do at home. Can you expand on that?
Yeah,
a little
that's
bit?
just it assesses them to find out where they're at. They call it a knowledge check, and basically it assigns them intervention problems and teaching skills to sort of build their skills from where they're at to up to grade level and beyond grade level if they're able to do that.
And you've seen that has it made improvement? Is it too early to tell yet? Is it?
I think it's too early to tell. I think when we do our regular D1 testing,
Right.
that we'll do sometime in the middle of the year, maybe February, something like that. I'm hoping to see that if they grew in ALEX, that their growth in DWA matches it.
Right.
And also to tell me, is the ALEX program working?
And we should see some correlation to the MCAS scores and other
Right.
state assessments that we do.
Right. But particularly that one because it's going right along the middle of the year. So I can see in the ALEX program if they've learned new skills.
Mhm.
It'll tell me that they've learned new skills, and I expect that to transfer over to NEWA.
Okay. So we can go back to the monomial lesson real quickly.
Yeah.
If you had to teach this lesson again to the same group of kids,
Mhm.
would you change it at all? Or would you do it the exact same way? How would you change the lesson plan to these kids? Do you think it worked great the first time around? Do you think would you change anything? Would you add anything
If
else?
it works well the first time around, there's always things to improve.
Right.
I would probably maybe have a small handout for them to do after I did a few reviews
Okay.
with them. Sort of almost like a sort of quick check in the middle of class, because for some of the skills, it's a fairly simple concept.
Mhm.
It's just them applying it, and maybe instead of jumping into that more complex problem, maybe have like a mid-step there
Okay.
before you get to like the big one that has, I think I had like, like 3 terms on top and 3 terms on the bottom, something like that. Maybe have
To kind of, as like a progression.
Yeah, it's progressive,
build
like, so you get the easy ones that the book provides to learn the skills, and then
Right.
step it up a little bit, and then give them the more challenging ones at the end.
Well, like you talked about, the kids are, they're hungry for the challenging problems anyway.
They are, yeah,
They
some
just
of them
do.
are, yeah.
So I saw that they worked on the whiteboards during the lesson.
Yeah.
What kind of advantage does that give you to see what they're doing on the whiteboards? The kids are very, like you could tell they're routine oriented. They all got up, they all got the whiteboards. You could tell they were working great right away. Do you see the benefits for that? Do you see?
They like the whiteboards.
Right.
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just writing on a board instead of a piece of paper. It's different, but they definitely enjoy that. It's easier to see their work. They're more likely to show their work. They're more likely not to erase. Well, I mean, they can still erase it, but.
They are more likely to show their work, though.
They are more likely. It's bigger too, so it's easier to sort of look around the room and see the work on the
Right.
paper to see how much work is there. And I can see from a distance if a kid doesn't have a lot of work, I can go over in the system.
Yeah,
If
that makes sense.
They get stuck. Whereas if it's on paper, it's smaller, it's harder to see, it blends in easier with the paper.
Absolutely.
So it definitely stands out more visually for me.
How often do you use the whiteboards?
We try to get to them, either the big boards on the wall or the small whiteboards, I'd say at least once a week. Sometimes lessons dictate more, but I'd say minimum once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times,
Right.
depending on the lessons. They have to have the skills in order to get up there and sort of show their skills.
Right.
Really
Well,
is
the simplifying monomials is, you can, like you just talked about, really,
Right.
you could really see like the work
Right.
that they're showing because
Yeah, I
they
can see them
simplify the
crossing it
monomials
out
down.
and stuff, and how they cross it out, and if they're using a good strategy to sort of simplify it.
Right. Right.
How much work they're doing in their head. Some of them like doing it in their head, and you really need to do it on paper.
Yeah, well, because you want to be able to. Sometimes you want to be able to refer back to that
Right,
in a
yeah.
later problem. And in whiteboards, you can't really necessarily do that because it's erased so quickly, and you just
Right.
move on to the next thing.
Right.
So then at the end, it was really good to see the kids are able to approach you at your desk.
Yeah.
With
yeah.
the whiteboard, so it's like they, there's movement in the room. They want to check their answers. What was your reasoning for that to do that?
I think for some of the students, it makes it, they like having the work checked. They like sort of building the confidence. I got it right. It's easier for me to have them come up, put the ownership on them.
Mhm.
Say, hey, if you feel ready, come to see me. So I'm not hovering around them.
Right.
And I think that sort of makes them feel a little anxious if you're sort of walking around too much
Mm-hmm.
and sort of watching them.
Right.
That when they're ready, they know they can go up and have their work checked.
So it's like a relaxed attitude in here
Right.
as far as the work is being completed.
I mean, they are expected to have their work checked at some point.
No, definitely make sure
Yeah.
they know what they're doing before they go on to the next topic.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the depth of knowledge questions and the higher order thinking questions. What are some ways that maybe for next time you can improve the higher order thinking questions aspect of your lesson plan? As far as, you talked about progressively getting bigger with the monomials,
Mhm.
doing 2 terms on top, 2 terms on bottom.
Yeah.
What are other ways that we can kind of incorporate some of those depth of knowledge questions as far as like integrating and maybe possibly getting the students to become more, vocal in their teaching? I mean, we saw them come up here, put ownership on them.
Right.
How can we put more ownership on them for the next lesson? Maybe not for that one, but for the next lesson coming up.
In terms of high order thinking questions.
Right.
I think with this past lesson, we just computational stuff.
Okay.
I think adding some type of word problem into it. All right, so we did computational skills. So I would continue with probably doing word problems for a deeper understanding. And then maybe with some backwards thinking where they have the answer and work backwards to find the original monomial.
Okay, well that makes sense because I'm sure the kids really struggle with the word problems anyway.
Yeah, so it would be more challenging how to adapt it, how to use them, and where the numbers should be, whether multiplying or dividing or add or subtract.
Okay. Why do you think they struggle with that? Why do you think they struggle with the word problems?
I think because the operations aren't explicit, and so when they have to think about how to, what operation they need, whether it's multiplying or dividing, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's hidden in context.
Okay. And as far as like after school help, have you seen anyone from the accelerated math class come to you for after school help for test corrections, for anything like that?
I've seen a few students come for after school help. I'm hoping that more will come as the topics change and